Hi, it's day 14 now of our 40 days through the Gospel of John. We're in the second half of John chapter 6. Hopefully you read that chapter yesterday. I encourage you to read it again. It's very frustrating for me as we motor through John 6. We're having to just skim the surface on stuff. And John chapter 6 is one of those where there's so many bits to it and so many places I could go. But I'm just going to focus on one part of it because of time. I want you to see, as you read John chapter 6, look for some phrases that are repeated over and over again. Look for the phrase, I'll raise them up on the last day. And look for the phrase, eternal life. Jesus had this debate with the Pharisees and the people who were debating with him about the fact that he was the bread of life. He said, he'd done all that stuff of feeding you the bread. And he said, I am the bread of life. And he says this in verse 40, my Father's will is that everyone who looks to the Son and believes in him shall have eternal life, and I will raise them up at the last day. That's one of the places where he talks about the last day. What he's saying is I've come that I might save people so that when we get to the very last day, when the world is folded up, the end day, they'll be raised up. This is his promise of eternal life. And it's a wonderful promise that gives us for the future, a promise for the future that says, when time comes to an end, I will be raised back to life and I will have eternal life. But I want you to see as well, as you look through this and look for this phrase about eternal life, see in verse 47, very truly I tell you, the one who believes has eternal life. Not will have, has eternal life. That's why when Jesus talks about this bread, that you'll never go thirsty again, never go hungry again, never go thirsty again, he's saying this eternal life that we have a promise of for the future starts now. Anyone who believes has eternal life. In verse 54, Jesus then says this in a really peculiar way. Actually, let's start from verse 53. Jesus said, very truly I tell you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. That's the opposite of eternal life. You have no life in you. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I'll raise them up at the last day. Jesus is saying this thing about believing in me is not just a head thing. It's almost like a consuming thing. We eat the flesh, we drink the blood. It's a metaphor. He's not meaning we physically do that. What he's saying is Jesus becomes so much part of our life. He becomes so indwelt within us that his life consumes our life. And it's fascinating, really, because those who heard it said this is a tough teaching to take. Now, I can't tell whether they're saying it because this sounds a bit gross, Jesus. You're talking about eating flesh and drinking blood. Or whether they grasped the true meaning of it and still went, this is a tough teaching. This is tough. To have so much of Jesus in our life. Not just a head knowledge, but to consume him. To feast upon him, that we would experience eternal life, not just in the future, but now. Well, my encouragement to you today is, how might you eat and drink of Jesus today? That you might experience more and more of his eternal life today for whatever you have in store. Have a great day.